we should start. First of all, thank you so much for being present in this webinar. It's our second webinar of EARA, European Animal Research Association. We did one late last year about patient engagement, and now we're doing this one about the roles of veterinarians in animal research, which is often an unsung hero of research. So this will last for 1 hour and a half. The agenda, I will speak briefly just to let you know what EARA is. Then Lucie Côté from Canada will speak about what is veterinary, the welfare and the supervision that veterinarians do for animal research and animal research facilities. Then Nair will narrow it down from the UK, will narrow it down to rodent facilities. Then Valérie from Marshall Bioresources in France will do about their perspective as a dog breeder. Merel from the BPRC in the Netherlands will talk about their work with primates. Elena Paradel will do, from Spain, will have another perspective that we often don't talk about, which is animal research for veterinary research, so meaning animals being used for their own sake, for their own specific health issues. Then Michael McKinney will have a general overview of opinions about animal research from veterinary students in universities. And then we will have our panel, which will be moderated by Lucie Côté. So these are the rules. You can use the Q&A at any time to leave a message, a question for the speaker. Speakers will reply only during the panel discussion, so there's no discussion for each speaker. It will all be at the end. You can also, during the panel discussion, use the Q&A to write non-specific questions that came up during the discussion. And as you may have noticed, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll try to have an edited version ready soon after it finishes. So just to let you know what EARA is, we're a communications and advocacy organization that we work for institutions, biomedical research institutions, and other stakeholders in animal research to help them communicate better how they use animals in research and why they are still needed. So we started being an organization that is mainly based in Europe. We started in 2014, but now we're a global organization. And since January this year, since 2 weeks ago, we are now 230 members. And as you can see, most of them are in Europe, 181, but we are growing our reach in the Americas, especially in the last members that joined were mostly Canadian organizations. So we're working really closely with Canada to develop a more strategic plan of communicating animal research. So this is just the perks of being a member. We are a trusted voice for biomedical research in Europe and now elsewhere as well. We often communicate with the European Commission regarding the European Directive for Animal Welfare in research. We also coordinate sector responses to both regulation and supply chain challenges. So we have a stronger public understanding and openness that we're trying to have this culture of change where organizations are not afraid anymore about talking about their animal research. So we're a leader in transparency, and we also co-coordinate transparency agreements, which are agreements, national agreements, where organizations actually commit to being more open every year and show their activities, show how they use animals in their institution. And then we also do a lot of training. We support our members through workshops, both for internal and external communication. So for external, we do a lot of media training, tailored workshops. We have a communications handbook, which basically has everything that you need to know about communicating animal research. And we also do crisis support for our members. Our members also have access to several newsletters, including a policy briefing and reduced rates for participation in both the intermediate trainings and also for the EARA conferences. By the way, there will be a new one in 2027 in Lisbon. So I will pass the word now to our first speaker, Lucie Côté. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nuno. So welcome everyone. I have the honor to start this webinar today. I think everyone has a good idea of the role of veterinarians in different domain of practice for small animal, for example, agriculture animal. But in research, it remains a little bit vague and obscure. And so hopefully this webinar will bring a little bit of light on our work. So next slide, please. So I'm a veterinarian by training. My name is Lucie, Côté. I'm director of the Animal Resource Division at the Research Institute of the McGill University Health Center. It's located in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada. So we are an hospital-based research institute supporting more than 100 research team of clinician, researcher. I'm managing a team of, or working side by side with a team of about 80 employees, which are veterinary technician, animal care attendant, animal welfare specialist. And we have a program that support, it's a multi-species program, but we work mostly with mice, with rodent. I'm also president of the Canadian Association for Laboratory Animal Medicine. So this is the association that supports veterinarians working in research, training, testing in Canada. We have about 150 veterinary members across Canada. And I'm also board member and treasurer for the Canadian Council on Animal Care. So the CCAC, which is the organization that sets harmonized national standards for the care of research animal in Canada. They also certify animal care program. They ensure public accountability. And since a year now, I'm a member delegate on the board of the European Animal Research Association. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll dive in the context of veterinary medicine in Canada. So we have 5 faculty of veterinary medicine in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, and in Quebec, where I graduated from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at Université de Montréal. Next slide, please. So in order to be able to practice laboratory animal medicine in a specific country, a veterinarian needs to hold a professional license from their country or their province. And this is similar to all domain of practice. So for example, in the province of Quebec, we need to be a member of the Ordre des médecins vétérinaires du Québec. So this is our licensing body. And we are professionally inspected. We need to follow continue indication to maintain our license. So for laboratory animal veterinarian, there is formal training that are available post veterinary university degree. So there's certificate, you could do a residency, a master degree, a PhD, or you could, you know, simply have on-the-job training with other expert veterinarians that have experience in the field. We also have the possibility in North America to be certified by the American College of Laboratory Animal Medicine. So several of my colleagues in Canada are certified by this organization. Next slide, please. So now I will go through really with the Canadian angle, the primary area of responsibility of the laboratory animal veterinarian. And this comes from our association, KLAM, Standards of Veterinary Care. You can find all the information if you search for KLAM, ACMAL on the internet or use the QR code. Next slide, please. So the first area of responsibility is, it's our primary focus. It's the animal ethic and the welfare oversight. So we evaluate the animal welfare in a laboratory setting or in the animal facility on a daily basis. We evaluate physiological, socially, the behavior of the animal, and the veterinarian has to provide on-call service 24-hour, 7 days a week. Next slide, please. So a very important role that we have is our active participation to our organizational animal care committee. So in Canada, organizations that are certified by the Canadian Council on Animal Care need to have in place an animal care committee. At my institution, we have 2 animal care committee, and we meet monthly. So as you see in the little diagram on the left, it's composed of a very varied group of individuals. So there are scientists, representative from the community, so representative from the public that don't have any experience or work in research, veterinary technicians, students, and there's always a veterinarian. So the veterinarian acts as an expert advisor on the committee. There's no research procedure that can go forward without the approval of the veterinarian. And basically the committee acts as a safeguard for animal welfare. So in the committee, we evaluate each research project, as I mentioned, and we always keep in mind the 3 R's. So the 3 R's are a widely accepted ethical decision-making principle. They're embedded in the conduct of animal-based science in Canada and internationally. So you will hear from my colleague in the webinar a lot about the 3 R's. So these principles stands for questions that we're asking when we envision doing research using animal. So first, we have to ask ourselves, very importantly, and with the committee member, can we replace the animal with a non-animal method, with what we call new approach methodology or NAMs? So these are, could be artificial intelligence, computational models, cell culture, organoids, organo-on-a-chip. I'm sure you've heard about these words. So this is the first step. If we still need to advance and use animal, then we ask the question, can we reduce the number of animals necessary to answer that question? And the third and final R, which is refinement, that's where the veterinarians have a really big role to play, because that's where we say, okay, we did all these steps. We need to use an animal model to answer the question that the research group has. Can we refine? Can we improve the husbandry? Can we improve the procedure, the surgery, to minimize the negative welfare impact for the animals? Next slide, please. So the second area is overviewing animal husbandry and care. So we, determining the suitability of facility and equipment, and it goes from the washing of the cage or the enclosure of the animal, the sterilization process, to the welfare of the animal in terms of husbandry practices, behavioral requirement in their cage, following the standards, because there's very clear standards on the space that each species need to be provided with enrichment of their environment to be able to have their species display their species specific positive behaviors. And my colleague Dr. Denison will talk a lot about the rodent housing, so I will just stop here and you'll hear all about it in the next presentation. So it might come as a surprise, but veterinarians are also responsible to overview all renovation and construction project of research animal facility. So we need to follow specific national infrastructure standard for this project, like the CCAC guideline on laboratory animal facilities. And you see here in the photo that I'm showing, these are photos of the construction of our research institute and our hospital in 2014 in Montreal. And there's a photo of my manager and me at the start of the construction process on the construction site. So we were pretty much involved in all aspects with the construction team, the engineer, the architect, to make sure that the ventilation and all the aspects related to animal welfare are well respected in the construction. Next slide, please. So we also take care of the, of course, the health management and the disease surveillance. And there I want to emphasize that, you know, this is a webinar on the role of the veterinarian, but we work as a very, very tight team with the veterinary technician, the animal care attendant, to make sure that the animals are very comfortable and have the best surveillance and health management in place. So it starts from approving the source of the animal, overseeing the transportation, doing an evaluation of the animal at the arrival, and when the animal are placed in their quarter, we then make sure that they're a competent animal care attendant that visually observe every animal every day, including also holiday and weekend. Next slide, please. So the health management, disease surveillance also involve everything related to veterinary responsibility, keeping accurate medical record for every animal, establishing health monitoring program, and also accessing or providing diagnostic laboratory service to assist with surveillance, diagnosis, and treatment of disease. So there I just included a photo of one of my colleagues that is a veterinarian working in the field. And so there's also a role of the veterinary. Next slide, please. So very important, the clinical medicine and surgery. So we oversee the choice of analgesic, anesthetic agent, dosage, route, schedule, substance administration, sample collection. We ensure that facilities intend for animal surgery meets current veterinary standards, and it's determined also in guideline and policy from the CCAC. And we make sure that the personnel is trained and competent for all the procedures that are done. Next slide. So this is a very important role in research because the goal is really to support research team. So we contribute in the selection of appropriate animal model. We're optimizing the experimental design, the technique, and we work really side by side with the researchers. At my institute, it's an hospital-based institute, so we work with pediatrician, ophthalmologist, surgeon, cardiologist, oncologist. So they do, as you see in the photo, the clinician meet or see their patient, but they also run a research program, and this is the role that I find very rewarding, working with the research team to make sure that the animals are comfortable and their well-being is respected, and at the same time advancing research. And I show here our 8 programs. So in all these for all these disease and human disease and condition. So the next slide, please. So the veterinarian also have a big role to play in regulatory oversight. So in Canada, as I mentioned, the Canadian Council on Animal Care certification is a condition for all institutions that receive funding from the federal grading agency for all their animal-based project. So the CCAC was created in 1968, and it provided a harmonized independent system for the oversight of animal research in Canada. And I want to mention on that slide that the veterinarian provides a lot of expertise to the CCAC on a volunteer basis. So we are invited to attend program assessment visits across the country. We are invited to participate in committee to review standards and guidelines. We provide training to other veterinarian, to the veterinary technician. And we are also involved in the governance of the CCAC, like me and other of my veterinary colleague that sits on the board of director of the CCAC. Next slide, please. So we oversee a mandatory animal-related training program for all personnel and researchers working with animals. And well, you see in the first photo, it's our training setup, training room. And on the second photo, I wanted to mention that we're also there to promote alternative and replacement whenever it's possible when teaching manual skill. So this is a mouse simulator where user can practice handling and restraint, oral administration, blood collection. We also use fake skin to practice sutures. So as much as possible, we try to use these alternatives when we are training procedure. Thank you. I just have a few slides left. I wanted to talk about rehoming animal because the veterinarian also play a role in this aspects at the end of research project, and this is really when it's possible. You know, there are some rehoming project that I'm particularly proud of, and there's a photo of our group of ferret after a COVID-19 vaccine study a few years ago. These animals were never infected, so it was a vaccine study, and we were able to rehome the animals in loving home after the project, which is wonderful when we can do that. So we, you know, counting on our team of veterinary technician and veterinarian to do this. We call it sometimes the 4th R. Next slide. So one important role, I think, and this is why my colleague and me participate in that webinar today, is communication. So I'm involved with a pan-Canadian project to improve openness with the public and facilitate communication around animal research in Canada. So we have partnered with EARA, and you see on the right, this is a transparency agreement. Nuno talked a little bit about it at the beginning in the introduction. So this is an agreement that we will launch in June in Canada, where institutions can join this agreement and, you know, try to commit on being more transparent on their animal-based research project. So this is kind of creating a network together, so we can put some alternatives or some initiative in place. And you can see on the left, this is the open house that it's the second year that we're organizing in our animal facility to invite the public to really understand why we're doing our work and how it is done. And you can access with the QR code, sorry, just want to mention lastly, you can access with the QR code for more information on transparency agreement. There are a lot of agreements that are already in place in Europe and now in the US and soon in Canada. Next slide, please. So I just want to finish my talk with this slide with the 8th program of research conducted at my institute. We are doing this work because we deeply care about animal and also because we deeply care about human health. And, you know, I think each and every one of us can relate to these diseases, these conditions within our circle of family and friend. And as laboratory animal veterinarian, this is extremely meaningful, rewarding to be able to support medical specialists and researchers for the advancement of research and offer a chance for people to live longer and healthier life. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Lucie. That was a very good introduction also to all the other presentations. Now that we have more of a context of what is actually the various roles of veterinarians in research facilities. So now we will go to Nair Dennison, also a vet, this time from the United Kingdom, and she will talk about rodent research.
Thanks, Nino. So I'm Nair Dennison. I work at the University of Dundee. I also represent a number of I'm involved in a number of European laboratory animal medicine associations. Next slide, please, Nino. Thank you. I've been a vet in general practice, but I've got more than 30 years working in laboratory animal medicine, and that includes with agricultural species, with rodents, rabbits, and aquatics. So quite a wide range. And I'm here today in my role actually on the board of the European Society of Laboratory Animal Veterinarians. So how are veterinarians involved in rodent research? The first role that we're involved with is called a designated veterinarian in Europe, or the named veterinary surgeon in the UK. It's very, very similar to the role that Lucie explained, so I'm going to go through this quite quickly. We have an important role in promoting the 3 R's, and that means that we work closely with researchers and animal technicians to look at if and see if we can advise if we have ideas on non-animal alternatives, on how we can use fewer animals, and how, if we do have to use animals, we can make the procedures and the animal environment as good as possible. We work to reduce the harm. Sorry, go back one, please. We work to reduce the harm of experimental techniques specifically, and we also work to improve housing and husbandry. In terms of advising on health monitoring and biosecurity, the vast majority of rodents species are purpose-bred and actually at a very high health status already, so I'm not going to come back to that because illness related to disease is very rare. But we do provide care for any ill animals, as Lucie said, 24/7, and we support and train people because obviously if you improve people's skills, then the welfare of the animals that they are doing procedures on will be improved too. So the second role is as inspectors in the UK, employed by the regulator. They have to be vets or doctors, and they advise on applications and amendments and also review licenses for personal projects in the places where places of work can be carried out. This is so that institutions can be checked that they are basically sticking to the law, and the role is mandated under the legislation in Europe, in the UK, the Animal Scientific Procedures Act. Veterinarians are often also researchers, so they can be studying rodent behaviour, physiology and immunology, so to actually find out more about the rodent species themselves. Sometimes they'll undertake research to improve things like anaesthesia or analgesia to reduce harm from procedures, so this may be as part of their role as the designated veterinarians to help the animals under their care, and they also work to improve models. So why are rodent veterinarians so important? The answer to this one is that most animals used in research are rodents. So if we look at the data for the UK and for Europe, so next slide, please. If you look at the big blue section in the top left graph, that's 57% of mice in the UK in 2024 were used. Sorry, the percentage of research animals, 57% of that was mice, and 10%, which is the deep red section, was rats. Similarly, in Europe, if you look at the figures from 2022, which are the most recent data, the mice made up 48% and the rats 7%, and other mammals in both, which are the black section, will include things like maybe hamsters and guinea pigs. So it's really important that we look after our rodents. One of the ways we can do this, so I'm going to talk about things from my personal experience. So examples of how we can make difference. Promoting non-aversive handling methods is one of the ways that we do this. So basically tubing and cupping methods. This makes the animals much more confident. They're much more familiar with people and much happier to be handled. That reduces their stress for procedures and so improves their welfare. So the next method that we look at for improving things is to look at how we house animals. So nesting material is really, really important for rodent species. And we look at providing a range of nesting materials in different lengths and textures because different species and strains will look at different things. So if we look at the animals here, we've got mice at the top and a rat at the bottom. We use longer and harder materials to help make structure. So for the mice, it's basically zigzaggy paper, which is quite tough. And then it's hay for the rats. And then we use a soft tissue, which is like a tissue paper or cotton wool to let them actually make the beds inside. We also can make a difference by ensuring that the animals have somewhere they feel safe for shelter. So sometimes these are plastic, sometimes these are cardboard or other chewable materials. The animals then have somewhere safe they can go into, and actually it makes it easier to handle them because they're more confident and they know that they can go and hide. They actually are more likely to interact with you, and obviously being confident helps them in terms of their welfare. We also look at what they do for natural behaviours. So these are mice that are foraging. We use forage for our rats and our mice. With rats, they can have sunflower seeds or even monkey nuts because they like to break them open. With mice, sunflower seeds or here wheat grains. The great thing about the wheat grains is that it's part of the normal lab diet. And that means if you're doing nutritional studies, we can often use this as a forage when we can't use other substances. And it just, as I say, gives the animal something to do and makes life less boring for them. Climbing is really important to most of our species. Mice and rats both love to climb. Rats are really nosy and they like to have the opportunity to be on high platforms or suspended platforms that they can look out on. And with our mice, they like swings. They like mobile things. Here are some bulb sea mice. They're actually really cheeky and very confident, so they tend to get up on the swings very fast. There are other strains which take a little bit longer to get used to them, but they all get used. We also look at how we can increase space for the animals. So given the opportunity, we for certainly bigger species like guinea pigs, we'll floor house them. So they'll be in a sort of a big group all together. This lets them have more opportunities to do different activities than if they were in a cage. It means that they can express more of the natural behaviours. And actually, although it looks like it might be difficult to catch them, normally what happens is they use the shelters to go into when people approach, and then we can just go into the shelter and take them out there. So we find that they're very interactive with us, and it's a very positive experience for the technicians as well as the animals. So we also look at how we can do similar things. It's harder to have quite so much space for some of the smaller species because we tend to have more of them. So on the left, the video is just showing rats in conjoined cages. So we have 3 cages joined together. Each would normally have 2 rats in it, but the 3 cages have 6. So they have more friends and they can use the whole space. The top video is of a playroom. So if we can't necessarily have animals in extended cages, or in addition we can pop them into a playroom to let them do different behaviours, or if the space is more limited, the bottom video is of a playpen, and the animals, that one's a rat fishing for some sunflower seeds and water because they quite like to do that. So these sorts of things obviously make a difference to the living standards for the rodents, and these little things overall can make a big difference. When we look at doing procedures, the playpen and the other things we've done will improve confidence, and that reduces stress for the animals. So it's an important component of actually how we start with improving our procedures. The next thing that we do, next slide please, is that we look at positive reinforcement training. So this is a rat who's been out for a procedure and he's having a little sunflower seed there that he's enjoying. So we use this frequently in large animals, but historically it's been used much less commonly for rodents. They do respond really well to positive reinforcement training. sampling. So it's a technique that we use a lot. Next slide, please. Thank you. The other things that we look at, this is unrestrained blood sampling. So this mouse is able to wander around the top of his cage. He's actually would be able to bite if he was upset, but clearly he's not particularly bothered. He's more interested in having a nosy about the place. By doing unrestrained sampling in this way, if you look at the graphs, the top one is of glucose, and the white bar shows the level of glucose that if you do for unrestrained rather than restrained blood sampling. So normally for a restrained sample in a mouse, it would be in a wee tube to hold it still. And the bottom graph is, of course, are actually significantly lower than when they're unrestrained in the restraint tube. That is really good for the animal welfare, shows that they're happier. But in addition, we do a lot of metabolic work, and so getting more accurate figures is really important for us for the study. So it's better for the welfare. Next slide, please. This is us looking at voluntary dosing. So obviously, if we can get the animals to take substances voluntarily, that's a positive thing. This is training them in the cage. There's a mouse on the left and a rat on the right, and as you see, they're quite happy to a nice sweet milk. Then beyond the substances, these are from pets, so this is a very active dose, and they take it all, and that's moved from gavage, where a tube would be put down their throat, so obviously a much more refined way of giving them a substance. And the next video is of a mouse being dosed in the same way. This mouse actually has had no training, so the substance that popped here has been very accurately measured. It's just going into a wee card in a cage. The mouse is then popped into the cage, and you'll see some really natural mouse behaviour here. So once the mouse is in, the first thing it does is it wanders around the outside of the cage. Mice like vertical surfaces, and they like to know what their environment is. So they'll go around the outside first just to check it out, check they're safe, see what's going on. So the mouse does a wee circuit. So he'll come back round to the back in a second. And once he's done his circuit, he then goes, there might be something more interesting here. Look, there's something in the middle here. So he goes into the middle now that he feels safe. And that's him eating up that dose. And so there's nothing left on the card. And that's his dose given. So no stress at all. So as Lucie said, it's really important how we make a difference in terms of things like supporting animals undergoing surgery. We make sure there's a good environment in terms of asepsis. We advise on things like mouse-orientated anesthetic machines, so you get specific ones for the animals. Next slide, please. And as well as this, we provide good post-operative environment. So the mouse video in the middle is a mouse who's about 2 hours post-operative. He's had his anaesthesia. He's recovered well because it was a good anaesthetic. He's had painkillers. As you see, he's inquisitive. He's had cannula put into a jugular vena carotid artery, and the wee button on his back is to let us blood sample him and dose him without actually having to inject. So post-operatively, that's what we want animals to look like. We use a heating cabinet on the left to keep them warm, and on the right-hand side, there are rats there who are grouped housed in a big pen so that they've got freedom to make sure that the cannula on the back isn't knocked. Next slide, please. As well, we can make a big difference to rodents by helping advise on humane endpoints. So we can look at the clinical signs that may be caused by, for example, genetic modification, and from that we can help develop scoring sheets which help explain to the technicians the process of when we need to take an animal from the study to stop it suffering. Next slide, please. And as I said at the beginning, and Lucie's emphasised, we're also, as people who are involved in biology, able to discuss with our researchers potential non-animal methods, and hopefully therefore help them to move away from animal methods where it's possible. In summary, veterinarians have a critical role in protecting and improving rodent welfare. We work with the technicians and researchers, and that's really, really important, and use our knowledge of animal biology to help advise and improve things. And at this point, I should thank both my researchers and my for all the fantastic pictures and videos that have been included in this. Even small improvements, these small things in housing and husbandry, and how we do our procedures can add up to a big difference, particularly because of the numbers of the rodents used. And with that, I will hand over to Nilo, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Nair. This was an amazing showcase of how animals are actually, or they are treated, because sometimes people might have the very wrong ideas of what animal research looks like, and you just showed that this is what animal research looks like and how animals are actually treated, all their welfare is maintained. Thank you so much.
So my name is Merel Wekman, and I am one of the 3 veterinarians working at the Biomedical Primate Research Center in the Netherlands. I will be talking a little bit about the role, about what a primate veterinarian does in our research and breeding facility. Next slide, please. So first of all, why are primates used in research in general? They are very special animals because mostly they are very closely related to humans, closer than other animals, for example. So especially if you look at the anatomy, the genetic side of it, but also especially the immune system is very similar to humans in a way that even they are susceptible to similar or sometimes exactly the same pathogens as humans are susceptible to. So this is what they are very commonly used for, is for infectious studies, like vaccine studies. They were extensively used in the COVID period, where it was really important to get safe and working vaccines out as quickly as possible, but through all the right ways, at least. Furthermore, more than most animals, their brains are the most similar to humans, so they are also used extensively in neurological research. Think about aging-related diseases, and but also just understanding exactly how our brain works in a way that we can't do in other species. Next slide, please. So primates are special animals, so they are also under extra scrutiny, not only from society, but also from the government. And there are some specific laws that I will very quickly, not to bore you too much with the laws, go over. First and foremost, and this is true for every single animal model that is used, is that they are, according to Dutch law, forbidden to be used when a suitable non-animal method exists. So this guarantees that researchers really have to actively explain why an animal model is necessary. Next, please. Yeah, so there are special conditions regarding the species of monkeys that can be used. So we can only use non-human primates. So this excludes the use of great apes. This is forbidden in the entirety of Europe, at least. And they can only be captive. So no wild-caught animals are used. They have to be at least born and bred in a captive environment. Next, please. And aside from this, the specific project that primates can be used for also have specific laws related to them. So the goal of the project has to be for the treatment or prevention of life-threatening and debilitating diseases or conditions for humans. So this makes it, it's basically like the last resort that humans have for diseases that they cannot research in other animals or in other ways. They are also only allowed to be used when no other animal species are specifically suitable for this project. They are not automatically allowed to be used in severe procedures. This includes I will not give any explanations, but aside from that, retrospective assessments are mandatory. This means that when the project is finished, the researcher have to tell to the government this is what happened, this was the actual severity that the animals experienced, and everything is logged. And that's how the government has a little bit more control about the primate research that happens in the Netherlands, at least. Next slide, please. So at the VPRC, we have 3 different primate species. Most of our animals are rhesus macaques, with some cynomolgus macaques, and we still have a couple of common marmosets, which we in part have successfully rehomed, working together with animal rights, which was a great experience for us. We were very happy that this was able to go through. Next, please. So, previous one. Yeah, so this is what our facility looks like from the top. So you see these circular buildings. This is where our breeding groups are housed. So these animals have indoor and outdoor access, and they live group housed in family groups. And in the top right, there are 2 buildings where the indoor housed experimental facilities are. This is where also we can house the animals under high containment, for example, for dangerous pathogens like tuberculosis or COVID or influenza, in order to protect not only the environment, but also ourselves. Next, please. And this is what, for example, a group housed outside area looks like. So this is where I mostly work as a veterinarian. These monkeys, they live in groups of families. They are able to freely go inside and outside whenever they want. And they can play. We give them swimming pools to swim in so that they can exhibit as much of their natural behavior as possible. As a veterinarian, this is what makes me very happy, of course. This outdoor housing is amazing for their welfare, but it, of course, comes with some more challenges. So this is very important for the development of their immune system. Since a very young age, they are exposed to maybe more different environments than if they were housed inside. And but it is also a risk, especially with stuff like these pools, that there can be pathogens hiding inside. So that's where the role of the veterinarian comes, where we optimize the housing, we give advice about cleaning, about disinfection, in order to keep the infection pressure under control. So the role comes in threefold, and first of it, for most of it, is clinical work. This includes veterinary care. Generally, this is not like all my other colleagues have said. This is rare, but it is very important. Especially monkeys, they have a very hierarchical relationship with each other. This is the same as in the wild, and this is something we very closely monitor. We have people that are experts at monkey behavior at our facility that we work very closely together with, and all our caretakers are very knowledgeable about the behavior and the biology of our primates. So if I have a patient in a group, I, as a veterinarian, would like to treat it. But if I take one patient out of the group in order to treat it, the whole group experiences stress because of that. So that is always something that I have to keep in mind when I'm working with these group housed animals, that even though the treatment for the single patients is very important, we have to really make sure that the rest of the group is not too bothered by it as well. So we can really work with this in ways, and for example, we can do research specifically towards this. For example, for if I want to dose with an antibiotic because a monkey has got an infection from a wound, for example, then we look at the dosage of the medication, and there's of course no medication licensed for monkeys. There's medication licensed for dogs and cats, but not for monkeys, unfortunately. So the dosage that we use is something that we take from literature, but literature doesn't always have the doses for the medication we want to use. So that is where veterinary research plays a big role, and that is something that we also do at our facility, where we perform studies to determine, for example, the dose and the duration of long-acting antibiotics. This has the effect that, for example, instead of having to inject the monkey once a day, we know that the antibiotic works for as long as 2 days, so we can inject them every other day. This greatly reduces the amount of stress we put not only on the patient, but also on the entire group. And that is where the veterinarian plays a pivotal role. Aside from this, we do welfare monitoring, so not only for the animals in our breeding facility, also for the experimental animals. We do animal health checks to really get a good overview of the welfare of the monkey. And we try to provide housing optimization as much as possible, especially during construction. When they're building new facilities, it's very important to have a veterinary present during all the meetings, really, in order to make sure that the housing is made also with the animals in mind. And we provide nutritional advice from a veterinary perspective. And next, please. And of course, we play an important role during the experimental phase. So I think our largest point as a veterinarian is to ensure as much refinement as possible. And we do this by advising protocols that either are in progress or are going to be performed soon. We always have to have a veterinarian present in the animal welfare body. This is required by law as well. So that this ensures that before a protocol reaches the stage where it is performed, that a veterinarian has looked at it and has also given advice, provided, for example, anesthetic, the update of the anesthetic protocol or analgesia. And but first and foremost, our primary target is protecting humane endpoints during studies. So this is what my colleagues have also talked about. This is really not from a research standpoint, but from a veterinary standpoint. So in order to protect the welfare of the animal and not necessarily look at the research results. That is what we are here for. The researchers are there for the research results. We are here for the animal welfare. And we also do this by assisting in experimental procedures, and also, like my colleagues have talked about, training caretakers, training technicians to perform handlings not only on animals themselves, but in the first stages, especially also on animal-free models in the way of a skills lab, where they can practice as much as they want to give them the confidence and the security to, which greatly improves the welfare during the procedures when the people working with the animals are confident and know what they are doing. Next, please. So I will talk finally a little bit about our political situation in the Netherlands. At least there is a big movement of phasing out animal research and especially primate research. So the BPRC is a non-profit foundation, and we are 80% funded. Well, actually 70%. I adjusted that in my slides, but it didn't update. But that's all right. We are 70% government funded, and the other 30% is gotten by the researchers from research grant and sponsors. Next, please. And in 2022, the government limited us to a maximum of 1,000 animals and 150 animal experiments per year. Next, please. And in 2025, we got the news that by 2031, all government funding has to be spent on non-animal alternatives. And while I think the idea behind this is very good, they want to promote as much possible the non-animal alternatives. Next, please. But unfortunately, because most of our government funding is used for the baseline care of the animals, so that's the care, the food, the housing, the pay of the caretakers, etc., this unfortunately has a negative impact on our high welfare standard that we have. So we are trying our very best to keep it at all times as high as possible. Limiting the amount of animals has an effect. Oh, sorry. On the outbred breeding facility, we want to provide healthy and good animal models. So when we are limited in the amount of animals, it is more of a challenge to make sure that the breeding facility is outbred without having to also import or export animals too much. And unfortunately, this has also limited the amount of refinement and reduction we, especially as veterinarians, can provide, because there's just less funding for that. And I wanted to end on that. So the final slide is just thank you to my team. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the coming talks as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Merel, for showing us what amazing things you are doing at the BPRC in the Netherlands, and how we need to maintain this level of animal welfare, and we only have that if we have funding.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was really interesting. I learned a lot as well. So there were a few questions from in the chat that came, but maybe to start, because we just heard Michael present on the choice of career in laboratory animal medicine. I would be interested to know what made you decide to choose this field of work with all the other options available, and maybe that will help convince other either veterinary student or sometimes veterinarian that work in other domain of practice do the transfer to laboratory animal medicine. So I don't know if we have one of you wants to start on this one.
I can. I went into this serendipitously because at the time I was working with cattle and sheep mainly, and I wanted to stay working with large animals, and large animal clinical practice was reducing, and a job opportunity came up working with swine, sheep, camelids. Looked really interesting, and they also had the small animal lab species, so I went into it actually to work with species I wanted, and because it looked interesting. And 30 years later, I'm still in it because it is interesting.
It is. There's never a day that is the same. So I think someone was talking.
Yes. So for me, it was intellectual curiosity and the desire to be part of something useful and to make a difference. And sometimes when you're working every day in a regular practice with pets, sometimes it's never boring, of course, but you have kind of routine that in the end, maybe you want to change and discover new things and new challenges, and research is exactly the good field for that. So for me, it really made sense, and I didn't regret my choice, of course.
Thank you. Maybe I can jump in. So in my case, it's really the interest to learn something different every day, and working alongside the researcher with also I think there's also some personal value for some of us to work in that field. It aligns with personal value on making life better for it seems trivial, but just making some advancement for people to live longer, for animal to be able to access better treatment as well, and we saw that it benefits from everyone. So I think for me it has a very big signification to do this work and contribute in my way.
Okay, so maybe we can have a question coming from the participants. Anna Choi asks, How do you see your role as veterinarians in communicating with the public, namely media interviews, news articles, and public debates? And also, how you describe your role to your family and friends and neighbors? Do you find it difficult? It's how it ends.
If I may start with this question, I have, especially with the second part, because I like very much all this area. I don't find it difficult because I am very proud of what I do, and so I don't find it difficult explaining what I do because I believe in what I do, and as a vet. When I started being a vet for lab animals, it was not something that I was searching. I was working with pigs in the farms, and I started performing field trials for different farmers, and I discovered all this world that is behind that it's on the research work, and it was something fascinating for me. And I felt directly that working with these animals and protecting these animals that are in research, that I don't feel that we have to protect them because we are we know very, very well the vets what we are doing. And but it's so probably the protect is not the word, but working for them, working for the animals, it was from then since now it has been the objective of my professional life.
Yeah, I agree. I don't find it difficult at all. I'm very passionate about openness. I think it's really important that people know information and facts. Obviously, lab animal research is controversial. People are very welcome to their own values and opinions, but they need to base those on information which is correct. So I always tell people, I have always told people what I do. I tell people on the bus, I tell people if they ask me, and I've never had a problem. I've had one response where someone was, I don't like that. And I said, that's fair enough. I said, but there's a lot of rules, and I explained about the legislation, and they said, I still don't like it at the end, but I feel much more comfortable about it. And I think, that's part of the role, is to make sure that we give truthful answers to questions. I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, something. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, please go ahead, Meryl.
And I agree with everybody else. I'm really proud of what I do, and I'm really passionate about what I do. But what we always try to also engage not only the global public but also the local public. So the people that live relatively close to our facility that might not realize that there are monkeys being housed here. We actually we are starting really to build up some more of engagement like that, and something that was really fascinating to me, I think is really important, is that people, they don't notice that there are veterinarians in lab animal science. So there are no they don't realize that when you use animals in research, the first thing they think is, are they used for cosmetics? And I always say, no. That is completely forbidden in the entirety of Europe, at least. Cosmetic animal research is forbidden. That's always the first question I get. And then the second question often is, oh, I didn't even realize a veterinarian is required for these things. And so the global public, they don't realize our very important role. And I think the awareness of that gives them a bit of trust as well, because in general, people do trust veterinarians. They take care of their cats and their dogs and their cattle and their sheep. But then we also take care of the animals that are being used for research as well.
And Meryl, it's a great point, but I was there's one slide in your presentation where you're talking about the political pressure to phase out the work with non-human primate in research in the Netherlands, and so we see across the world this pressure, and I think everyone would like to reduce as much as possible, like all of us said, the use of animal and replace with alternative. What's happening is that these decisions must be made because of science, not because of public opinion or political agenda. And I think for us as veterinarian to reassure the general public that animals are, their well-being is safeguarded with a team of veterinarian, of expert in animal welfare, and there's regulation that really overview all the procedures. I think just talking about it will help the public to make decision when, sometimes people will support the phase out of animal at a certain date, like in 2030, or these type of decision. But we would all very much like that. But I think we need to be really careful. If I have a message, is to be careful with these deadlines that are not based on scientific data. We want to invest in alternative and new approach methodology, but we also, I think it's important to invest as well in the refinement of the procedure for the animals that still need to be used, so we can advance in research. So yeah, I think our role is important to explain that, of course, there's veterinarian and specialists taking care of these animals. I don't know if any of you want to add. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going for another question from Prashant Kadam, just to make it general. It's in line with what we were saying about NAMs not yet being a full replacement for animals in many fields of research. He asks, how do you look at this current scenario, claims that these NAMs are sufficient to end animal research in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years?
Michael, I saw you were reacting.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I think a lot of these issues are kind of interconnected. I think the conversation around NAMs that's coming from policymakers all over the world really does stem from a lack of awareness of where we are with animal research and the work that we do and the progress that we've made. I think a lot of it is a push to replace animal experiments that is not quite ready, to be honest. I think the individuals that I've talked to who work specifically in drug development and toxicology, these new approach methodologies are things that they've used for years. Organoids and organs on a chip, some people might have heard of. Those are great examples of technology that they've used for a long time, but they are by no means an animal, right? They can't replicate the complex physiology of an animal. They can't replicate all of the organs working together in response to a drug, etc. So even the individuals that are using new approach methodologies in drug development, in toxicology, they agree that we are still, at least a decade, if not more, away from being able to really use these to replace animals. However, they do also agree that it is a valuable investment to invest in these methodologies, right? We've all kind of said it in different ways, but certainly we would love to use less animals in research. We would love to supplement the work that we do with newer and better technology. That would be incredible. But again, we have to be very careful, as it's already been said, that this doesn't accelerate past the science and let us make very rash and aggressive policy changes that we certainly can't support, because at the end of the day, it does come down to safety. It comes down to efficacy of the things that we approve. So that's my long-winded answer of saying no, they're not ready just yet, in my opinion.
Can I add to that, as someone who supports as a veterinarian working in academia? So most of the NAMs at the moment are actually in things like the drug safety area and things. So by the time you move into fundamental biology, you're so far away. And actually, if you look at the statistics in the UK, more than half the animals are actually used in basic biological research rather than in safety and efficacy testing. So the pathways that people have, and I'm 100% supportive of some of these, and we've had people speak to us about them who are experts in those sort of areas, to our researchers, and those people who are working with the non-animal methods say, that these are good for these things, but they're not good for these things. And I think we need to listen to the people who are working with those non-animal methods to let them tell us what those things can do and what they can't do. so that we worked, and hopefully by working together we'll get the best research answers and minimize the number of animals used to those which are truly necessary.
There's for sure an opportunity there to work in complementarity with animal model, and I think the role of the veterinarian in our field will probably change in the future year. That's what I kind of foresee, because we need to help and we support the research, and we're going to need to be more informed of everything that's available aside from animal model. I personally think even in fundamental research, so we can offer the best model to the researcher, or try to build network between institutions, not to recreate the same thing. But I really think it's right now it's a complement. It's working parallel, and with animal method, and in some case there's interesting discovery that are made or answered of certain specific question with the NAMs, but it cannot replace, like Michael mentioned, a full complex organism with disease that are multi-organ, like Alzheimer or cancer that touch different organ. We need a complex organism to study these questions. So, any more thought or question from the audience on?
They were answered in the means of the discussion. So some of them already answered. So I have one, but it can be left for last. If you have any more, Lucie.
Yeah, maybe we can ask, what has been your most impactful project in the field where you were able to see the outcome influence human or veterinary health? Is there a project that comes to mind? For sure, we're not the veterinarian, don't do the research, but we're participating and we're collaborating with researcher.
So mine was actually when I became a regulator for a while. So I've worked as a regulator, and I had worked trying to minimize harm in a mouse bioassay. And when I went to become a regulator, I worked with the other regulators to actually get it so that it was replaced. So basically, the best welfare you can have, which is not using them. Took 13 years, lots of international conversations. So I think that's the other thing which is important to realise around moving to alternatives, is things like validation, acceptance by regulators, all these things take time. And so being pushed politically to replace things, if those other mechanisms aren't in place, frankly, if they can get them in place in time, that's fantastic. But it's not a quick process currently. But I think that was definitely my proudest moment. It was a very unpleasant test as far as I was concerned, and total replacement. And we couldn't have done it without the veterinary background that I had in terms of the discussions we were having.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great example. There's also some project that we didn't talk a lot about it, but that we can put in place to reduce the number of animals that we're using to support the animal care and use program in our institution. So a good example is we have these in a mice colony or rodent colony, these sentinel animal that were tested regularly for detecting microorganisms that could impact the research. And more and more institutions have in place program that will test the dust in the ventilated rack where the mice are housed. And detection by PCR of the microorganisms. So in that case, we, as veterinarian, we can play a role in replacement, because we change a method that was there for a long time to ensure the outcome of the research result with a non-animal method. So, and we have as veterinarian a really good network and way of mentoring and helping other institutions to do this type of implement this type of initiative with the 3Rs collaborative, for example. If anyone is interested to go on their website, it's a North American organization, and they will explain and provide a lot of information on the 3Rs and how we can replace, reduce, refine. Also, the NC3R is a UK organization as well. So all good source of information available.
I just wanted to add a little bit to that. The project I am very passionate about comes back to training of people working with animals, because me and some colleagues of me are working on creating a skills lab where we use fully non-animal methods to provide the baseline training before the first time that they perform certain procedures on animals. So there are not a lot of ready-made models for monkeys. So we are working together with some institutions to develop these, both anatomical models as well as models that we can repeatedly practice on. So that really is a passion project of me, and I'm very happy this year is coming really seeing the results of it. It really motivates me as a veterinarian to help the caretakers feel more confident in their work as well, because that is also a role of us very often, not necessarily management, but we work so closely together with our caretakers, is also to give them some reassurance and confidence in their work, because they are truly I couldn't do my work without them. They are the most important parts of every research association, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. No, there was a few questions on the animal care committee and the member.
I think some of them were already answered.
Answers, yeah.
So okay, I'll just make like a question as well. Considering that all of these groups in Europe and North America are demanding for the phase out of animal research in their countries, in their like European Union, like the UK, Canada, the United States, they are demanding for the phase out of all animal research. But they then fail to say that this research is still needed and will be done with animals in other places that have not as high standards as we have in Europe and North America. How is your response to that? How do you feel like animal welfare is compromised in these ways?
I'd like to start a little bit about it, because there are not a lot of primate institutions in Europe, and something that really attracted me towards the BPRC is that I could immediately tell that compared to what is, well, commonly known, I was very positively surprised by the high welfare standards, and even still, we are always working towards creating a better life for our animals as much as possible. And by having complete oversight of our breeding facility, we can really follow the welfare from birth to experiment and beyond. That is something that I think is really important. We can really guarantee this in a way. And there's very strict laws in Europe and in the Netherlands, and if we don't want to do it here, I would stop using medication, because then I don't know what is. I don't have to trust that the welfare standard is kept as high as we can, and that is something for primate research is very, is a bit more under scrutiny, perhaps. So maybe I am not the the best person to talk about this, but I think especially for animals that are under scrutiny, we have to really advocate that we are doing a good job and that the animals are taken well care of.
And the source of animal is a really good point, because in Canada we do have government regulation for importation, and so it's like, you know, all of your respective country, but I think this is an insurance also for animal welfare, that, you know, the animals are not coming from the wild, or they are purpose bred for research. So this also bring a security in terms of animal welfare, but also on the result or the outcome of research.
I also want to add too, I think that this is another point in support of openness and transparency. Is I think that when people see the news about these new approach methodologies and maybe the push for the government to kind of slow down animal research or keep it in check, they may be misled, and they may think that animal research is not regulated, or they may think that the government is not already heavily involved in animal welfare regulations, but it's actually the opposite. I mean, the government is probably more involved in regulating animals in research than really any other animal use that we have. Certainly, they don't regulate pets, right? We've all worked in private practice. Their animal welfare in private practice can be horrendous. And certainly even livestock, right? Livestock is regulated, but it doesn't quite even have the amount of arms of enforcement and such, at least in the US, that animal research even does. So I think that that's another kind of feather in the cap of openness and transparency, is to educate people so that they don't see headlines like this and allow it to be misinformation and allow them to misunderstand what the situation actually is.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to provide a framework with transparency agreement, with commitment, and in different country for institution to be able to feel more comfortable to share the information on their website, or with public outreach initiative like open house, or public webinar like what we're doing at the moment. Yeah.
So yeah, I think unfortunately, we have to finish by now. There will be a lot more questions that we would have. We would stay here all afternoon and all morning and afternoon for some. So I would like so deeply thank all of the speakers for participating in this. Your perspectives are unique and they need to be shared. I think it just betters the understanding of non-specialist audiences about what actually happens, and for them to not only know that there are vets in animal research, in biomedical research, lab animal science, but there is also all of this care for the animals themselves by the vets, by all of the people that are supporting the animal facility. So this is a great message, and I thank you all for participating and reinforcing that idea.